It was a crisp autumn day when I first saw him across the crowded hallway of Westlake University's Arts Building. The kind of day where the sunlight filters through colorful leaves and casts everything in a golden glow. I remember adjusting my camera strap, my fingers nervously fiddling with the worn leather as I tried to capture the perfect shot of students rushing between classes. That's when our eyes met. His were a deep hazel that seemed to change color with the light, framed by dark lashes that were almost unfairly long. I quickly looked away, pretending to be absorbed in adjusting my camera settings, but I could feel his gaze lingering. That was the beginning of everything that followed. The story of how I, an introverted photography major who preferred to observe life through a lens, fell for the most vibrant theater student on campus. My name is Eli, and I've always been more comfortable capturing moments than living in them. Photography was my safe space, a way to experience the world while maintaining a comfortable distance. I spent most of my days wandering campus with my camera, searching for that perfect interplay of light and shadow, emotion and stillness. My professors praised my technical skills, but often pushed me to take more risks, to find the emotional core in my work. "Your photos are beautiful, Eli," my advisor would say. "But where are you in them?" I never knew how to answer that question until I met Noah. Noah was everything I wasn't: loud, confident, the kind of person who commanded attention simply by existing. A theater major with a reputation for both his talent on stage and his flirtatious nature off it. Everyone knew Noah, or at least knew of him. His laugh would echo down hallways. His passionate arguments about obscure playwrights could be heard across the student union. He moved through the world as if he owned it, and in many ways, he did. People were drawn to his energy, his unabashed enthusiasm for life. I watched him from afar, through my camera lens sometimes, capturing candid moments of his animated conversations or dramatic readings on the campus lawn. I never expected him to notice me. Why would he? We existed in completely different orbits, breathing the same university air, but living entirely different lives. At least that's what I thought until the annual arts festival in October. The hallways were packed with displays, performances happening in every available space. I was photographing a dance piece when I felt someone watching me. Turning slightly, I saw Noah leaning against the wall, arms crossed, that infamous half-smile playing on his lips. When our eyes met this time, he didn't look away. Instead, he raised an eyebrow, a silent challenge that made my heart race in a way I wasn't prepared for. "You always hide behind that camera?" he asked later, appearing beside me as I reviewed my shots on a bench outside. His voice was deeper in person than it sounded across a room, with a slight rasp that caught on certain words. "I'm not hiding," I replied, surprised by my own defensiveness. "I'm observing." He laughed then, not unkindly. "Is there a difference?" Before I could answer, he reached over and tilted my camera screen toward him. "These are good. You see things other people miss." The compliment was unexpected, and I felt heat rise to my cheeks. "I'm performing a monologue in 20 minutes. Room 215. You should come capture that observation." He winked and walked away before I could respond, leaving me flustered and confused. Of course I went. How could I not? I told myself it was for the photography practice, but even then, I knew that was a lie. I wanted to see him perform, to understand what made everyone gravitate toward him. The room was packed, but somehow he spotted me the moment I slipped in the back. Throughout his performance, an intense piece from Angels in America, his eyes would find mine at key moments, as if he was performing just for me. It was electrifying and terrifying all at once. When he finished, the room erupted in applause, but all I could focus on was the way he looked directly at me and mouthed well. I raised my camera in response, taking a perfect shot of him in that moment of triumph and vulnerability. That photo became the first of many. Somehow, we kept finding ourselves in the same spaces after that. He claimed it was coincidence. I suspected otherwise. We discovered we shared an art history elective, though he'd been sitting in the front while I preferred the anonymity of the back row. The next class, he plopped down beside me, ignoring the curious glances from other students. "I need a study partner," he announced, as if we'd already agreed to this arrangement. "Professor Williams hates me because I challenged his interpretation of Caravaggio's use of light and shadow." "Maybe he hates you because you call him Billy to his face," I suggested, surprising myself with my boldness. Noah's laugh was loud enough to earn us a stern look from across the room. "See? You get me already. We're going to be great friends, Eli. The way he said my name made it sound like something precious, something worth savoring. And somehow, against all odds, we did become friends. It started with study sessions in the library that often devolved into philosophical debates about art and representation. Noah had strong opinions about everything, and he pushed me to defend my own views with a passion I didn't know I possessed. We'd argue until the library closed, then continue our conversations at the all-night diner near campus, huddled over coffee and shared plates of fries. Photography is just capturing what already exists, he argued one night, gesturing with a ketchup-dipped fry. Theater is creation. We make something from nothing. That's not true, I countered, feeling that familiar fire he always managed to ignite. Photography is about seeing what others miss, finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. It's just as much creation as anything else. He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Show me, he finally said. Show me what you see that the rest of us don't. That challenge led to our first collaborative project. Noah agreed to be my subject for a series of portraits exploring the concept of performance versus authenticity. I photographed him in various settings, on stage, in rehearsal, in quiet moments between scenes, and in personal spaces like his cluttered apartment and favorite campus hideouts. The project pushed both of us. I had to direct someone who was used to being in control, and he had to relinquish that control to my vision. There were tensions, of course. Noah was used to projecting, to filling spaces with his presence. I wanted to capture the moments between performances, the real person behind the persona. Our first few sessions were frustrating for both of us. Just be natural, I urged during our third shoot. What does that even mean? He shot back, running his hands through his hair in exasperation. Everything is a performance, Eli. Every interaction, every conversation. We're always playing a role. Then play yourself, I said quietly. The version only you know. Something shifted in his expression then, a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. The photos from that session were different, rawer, more intimate. In one, he was looking directly at the camera, his usual confidence replaced by something questioning, almost vulnerable. When I showed him the images later, he was uncharacteristically quiet. Is that how you see me? He finally asked, his voice soft. It's one version of you, I answered honestly. There are many. Our friendship deepened after that. We started spending time together outside of our project and classes. He dragged me to parties I would have normally avoided, introducing me to his wide circle of friends with an arm slung casually around my shoulders. This is Eli, he'd say, the genius who's going to make me famous one day. I brought him to quiet exhibitions and film screenings, places where he would whisper commentary in my ear that made it impossible to focus on anything but the warmth of his breath against my neck. There were moments, small, fleeting instances, where something more than friendship seemed to hover between us. His hand lingering on my arm when he made a point. The way he'd absently play with my hair when we studied side by side. How he always sat just a little too close, our thighs pressed together even when there was plenty of room. I told myself I was imagining it, projecting my own growing feelings onto innocent interactions. Noah was tactile with everyone. It didn't mean anything special. But then came the night of the winter showcase. My photography series featuring Noah had been selected for exhibition, alongside works from other departments. The gallery was packed with students and faculty, and I was a nervous wreck. Noah found me hiding in a corner, obsessively adjusting the alignment of my artist's statement. There you are, he said, two champagne flutes in hand. The artist of the hour shouldn't be hiding in the shadows. I'm not hiding, I replied automatically. I'm observing. I know. He handed me a glass and clinked his against it. Well, tonight people are observing you, and they're impressed. Professor Williams, sorry, Billy, can't stop talking about the emotional depth and intimate gaze of your work. I took a large sip of champagne to hide my embarrassment. He's just being nice. Noah's expression turned serious, a rarity for him. No, he's being honest. These photos are special, Eli. He gestured to the wall where my images of him were displayed. You saw something in me that. He paused, seeming to search for words, an unusual struggle for someone so verbally fluid. Something I didn't know was visible. The intensity of his gaze made my heart race. We stood there, too close in the crowded gallery, something unspoken passing between us. Then a group of his theater friends called him over, breaking the moment. He squeezed my shoulder before walking away, leaving me confused and yearning for something I couldn't name. The showcase marked a turning point in our relationship, though not in the way I might have hoped. In the weeks that followed, Noah became strangely distant. Our study sessions became less frequent, his texts more sporadic. When we did spend time together, there was a new tension, an awkwardness that hadn't existed before. I told myself it was the end of semester pressure. He had a major production coming up, and I was struggling with my final portfolio. But deep down, I feared I had revealed too much through my photos, that he had seen the depth of my feelings and was pulling away to spare us both the embarrassment. The distance between us culminated in an argument after his performance in the department's production of The Importance of Being Earnest. He was brilliant as always, bringing a depth to the character of Algernon that had the audience alternating between laughter and thoughtful silence. I waited for him outside the dressing rooms, a small gift in hand, a framed print of my favorite photo of him, caught in a moment of genuine joy during one of our early sessions. When he emerged, surrounded by cast members and admirers, his eyes met mine briefly before sliding away. He accepted congratulations and hugs from everyone, working his way through the crowd until he reached me. "You were amazing," I said, feeling suddenly awkward. "As always. Thanks for coming," he replied, his tone polite but distant. None of the warmth I'd grown accustomed to. I handed him the wrapped package. "I got you something. A congratulations gift." He took it with a tight smile, but didn't open it. "Thanks. Listen, we're all heading to celebrate at the loft. You should come." It was a casual invitation, the kind you extend to an acquaintance, not the person who had spent months capturing your essence on film. Something inside me cracked. "What's going on, Noah?" I asked, hating the vulnerability in my voice. "You've been avoiding me for weeks." He glanced around, clearly uncomfortable with having this conversation in the crowded hallway. "I haven't been avoiding you. I've just been busy." "That's bullshit, and you know it." The words came out sharper than I intended, fueled by weeks of confusion and hurt. His expression hardened. "Not everything is about you, Eli. Sometimes people just need space." "Space from what?" "From me." I pushed, unable to stop myself. "What did I do?" "Nothing. You didn't do anything." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I'd photographed dozens of times. "Look, can we not do this here? People are waiting for me." "Of course they are," I said bitterly. "They're always waiting for you. Go be Noah the star. Don't let me hold you back." I regretted the words as soon as they left my mouth. Hurt flashed across his face, quickly replaced by anger. "You know what? Maybe I will. At least they don't analyze my every move like I'm some kind of subject to be studied." He pushed past me, leaving me standing alone in the hallway, the weight of unsaid words hanging in the air between us. I didn't follow him to the celebration. Instead, I went back to my apartment and spent the night alternating between anger and regret, replaying our argument and every interaction leading up to it. The following week was miserable. We avoided each other in our shared class, sitting on opposite sides of the room. I threw myself into my final projects, spending long hours in the darkroom where the chemical smell and red light could distract me from the ache in my chest. I missed him more than I wanted to admit. Not just the flirtation and the possibility of something more, but his friendship, the way he challenged me, made me laugh, pushed me to see the world differently. 10 days after our argument, I was working late in the photography department, organizing my portfolio for final submission. The building was mostly empty, just a few dedicated students scattered throughout the studios. I was so focused on my work that I didn't hear the door open, only becoming aware of another presence when a shadow fell across my prints. "These new ones are different." Noah's voice was quiet, tentative in a way I'd never heard before. "Darker." I looked up, startled to find him standing there, hands shoved in the pockets of his jacket, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for you," he said simply. "We need to talk." My heart hammered in my chest, but I tried to keep my expression neutral. "I thought you needed space." He winced. "I deserve that. And I'm sorry." He gestured to the chair beside me. "Can I sit?" I nodded, watching as he settled into the seat, his eyes never leaving my face. Up close, I could see the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. He looked as miserable as I felt. "I opened your gift," he said after a moment. "The photograph. It's beautiful." But, I prompted, hearing the unspoken continuation. But it scared me. His honesty surprised me. Noah was many things, but rarely vulnerable. The way you see me, it's like you can see right through all my bullshit. All the performances. I didn't know what to say to that, so I remained silent, waiting for him to continue. I've been thinking about what you said that day we were shooting. About playing myself. The truth is, I don't know if I know how to do that anymore. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've been playing roles for so long. The charming student, the talented actor, the life of the party. And then you come along with your camera and your quiet observations, and suddenly I feel seen. Really seen. And it terrified me. Why? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His eyes met mine, and the raw emotion there took my breath away. Because what if the real me isn't enough? What if, once you see past all the performances, you don't like what's underneath? The vulnerability in his question broke something open inside me. Noah, I said gently, I've already seen you. Those photos weren't capturing some act or performance. They were capturing you. The real you that comes through in quiet moments, in laughter, in concentration. And that person? That person is extraordinary. He looked down at his hands, which were fidgeting in his lap. I've never felt this way about anyone before, he admitted quietly. Like they could see parts of me I didn't even know existed. It made me panic, so I pulled away. My heart was racing so fast I thought it might burst from my chest. How do you feel now? He looked up, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Terrified, but in a good way, like standing on stage right before the curtain rises, that moment of pure potential. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his words settling between us. Then he stood abruptly. Come on, I want to show you something. Curious, I followed him out of the studio and through the empty hallways of the arts building. It was late enough that most of the lights had been dimmed, creating pools of shadow between the overhead fixtures. Noah walked with purpose, occasionally glancing back to make sure I was still following. He led me to the theater department on the opposite side of the building, using his student key to unlock the door to one of the smaller performance spaces. The room was dark except for a single ghost light on the stage, casting long shadows across the empty seats. Noah took my hand, the first time he'd done so intentionally, and led me up the steps to the stage. In the center was a simple wooden chair, a single spotlight focused on it. What is this? I asked, confused. My final project for experimental performance, he explained. I was inspired by your photography series. It's about authenticity and performance, the versions of ourselves we show to different people. He guided me to the chair. Sit, please. Still bewildered, I sat down, feeling strangely exposed in the spotlight. Noah disappeared briefly into the wings, returning with what I recognized as my camera. He must have grabbed it from the studio when I wasn't looking. What are you doing with that? I asked, suddenly nervous. Turning the tables, he said with a small smile. You've spent months capturing me through your lens. Now I want to capture you through mine. He lifted the camera, adjusting settings with surprising familiarity. Just be yourself. I don't know how to perform, I protested. That's exactly the point, he replied, his voice gentle. You don't need to. Just be Eli. The version only you know. It was strange and uncomfortable being on the other side of the camera. I fidgeted, unsure what to do with my hands, my face, my eyes. Noah took photos patiently, occasionally offering soft direction. Look at me, not the camera, he suggested. Pretend it's just us talking. Gradually, I relaxed, the familiar sound of the shutter oddly comforting. Noah moved around me, capturing different angles, different lighting. After several minutes, he set the camera down on a nearby table and approached me, stopping just short of where I sat. You know what I realized while I was avoiding you? He asked, his voice low in the quiet theater. I realized that for the first time in my life, I wasn't performing when I was with you. I didn't need to be the charming theater kid or the life of the party. I could just be me. Messy, insecure, real. And you still looked at me like I was something worth seeing. My throat felt tight with emotion. You are. He took a step closer, now standing directly in front of me. I've been trying to find the right words, the perfect scene to tell you how I feel. But maybe it's not about words this time. The air between us felt charged, electric with possibility. Noah reached out, his fingers gently tracing the line of my jaw, and I leaned into his touch instinctively. Time seemed to slow as he leaned down, his intention clear in his eyes. But before our lips could meet, The sound of a door opening echoed through the theater. "Hello? Is someone in here?" A security guard's voice called from the entrance. "The building's closing in 15 minutes. Noah straightened quickly, calling back. "Just finishing up a project. We'll be out soon." To me, he whispered, "Saved by the bell, I guess." The interruption broke the intensity of the moment, but something had fundamentally shifted between us. As we gathered my camera and his notes, there was a new ease in our movements around each other, a certainty that hadn't been there before. We walked out of the arts building together, the night air cool against my flushed skin. Noah's hand found mine as we crossed the quad, our fingers intertwining naturally. Neither of us spoke until we reached the fork in the path where we would normally separate, his apartment to the east, mine to the west. "I should probably get this back to the studio," I said, gesturing to my camera bag. "I'll walk with you," he offered immediately. "If that's okay." The photography building was dark when we arrived, most students having finished their work for the night. I used my key card to let us in, the familiar smell of chemicals and paper greeting us as we entered. The hallway was dimly lit, just enough light to navigate by. I returned my equipment to the locker, hyper-aware of Noah leaning against the wall across from me, watching my movements with an intensity that made my skin tingle. As I closed the locker door, I felt a move behind me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, but not quite touching. I turned slowly, finding myself caught between the metal lockers and his presence. The hallway seemed to shrink, the world narrowing to just this moment, just us. "Eli," he said, my name a whisper in the quiet hallway. His eyes searched mine, asking a question he didn't voice. I nodded slightly, unable to form words. It was all the permission he needed. Noah closed the distance between us, one hand coming to rest on the locker beside my head, the other moving to my waist. He paused, just a breath away, our foreheads nearly touching. "I've wanted to do this since the first time I saw you hiding behind that camera," he murmured. "I wasn't hiding," I replied automatically, my voice barely audible. His smile was soft, intimate in a way I'd never seen before. "I know. You were seeing. And now I see you too." Then he was kissing me, and everything else faded away. His lips were soft but insistent against mine, the hand at my waist pulling me closer until our bodies pressed together. I responded eagerly, months of tension and longing pouring into the kiss. My hands found their way to his shoulders, his neck, his hair, all the places I'd wanted to touch but never dared. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Noah rested his forehead against mine. "I should have done that a long time ago," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Better late than never," I replied, unable to keep the smile from my face. We stood there for a long moment, trading soft kisses and softer words, reluctant to break the spell of the moment. Eventually, the reality of the late hour and our final projects due the next day forced us to separate. Noah walked me back to my apartment, our hands linked the entire way, stopping occasionally to kiss under streetlights like we were in some indie romance film. At my door, he kissed me one last time, deep and promising. "See you tomorrow?" he asked, though it wasn't really a question. "Definitely," I assured him, already missing his warmth as he backed away. The next few days were a whirlwind of final projects, end-of-semester stress, and stolen moments with Noah. We studied together in the library, his foot hooked around my ankle under the table. We took breaks to kiss in empty stairwells and quiet corners of campus. It was new and exciting, but also comfortable in a way I hadn't expected, like we'd been heading toward this all along. The night before winter break, Noah's roommate threw a party at their apartment. It was crowded and loud, typical end-of-semester celebration. I still wasn't comfortable in large groups, but Noah stayed close, his hand always finding mine in the chaos, his eyes checking in regularly to make sure I was okay. Around midnight, when the party was at its peak, he leaned in close to be heard over the music. "Want to get some air?" I nodded gratefully, and he led me through the crowd toward the hallway that connected to the building's fire escape. As we passed through the corridor, several people called out to Noah, trying to engage him in conversation. He smiled and waved, but didn't stop, his focus entirely on me. We were halfway down the hall when someone grabbed his arm, insisting he come see something in the living room. "Give me 2 minutes," he told me, squeezing my hand apologetically before being pulled away. I continued to the fire escape, welcoming the cool night air after the stuffiness of the party. The metal landing offered a view of campus, lights twinkling in the distance. I leaned against the railing, thinking about how much had changed in just one semester. I'd come to college expecting to focus entirely on my photography, to observe life from a safe distance. Instead, I'd found myself at the center of my own story, experiencing rather than just documenting. I was so lost in thought that I didn't hear the door open behind me. It wasn't until I felt arms wrap around my waist that I realized Noah had joined me. He pressed a kiss to the back of my neck, sending shivers down my spine. "Sorry about that," he murmured against my skin. Ryan wouldn't take no for an answer. I turned in his arms, looping my own around his neck. "It's okay. I know you're in high demand." He shook his head, his expression serious despite the playful atmosphere of the night. "Not anymore. There's only one person I want to be with right now." The intensity of his gaze made my heart race. We'd spent the past few days exploring this new dimension of our relationship, but there was still so much unspoken between us. So many possibilities yet to discover. "What about after break?" I asked, voicing the concern that had been lingering in my mind. "We'll be apart for 3 weeks. I'll miss you every day," he said simply, "and I'll call you so much you'll get sick of my voice." "Not possible," I assured him, leaning up to press a quick kiss to his lips. He caught me before I could pull away, deepening the kiss until we were both breathless. When we separated, his eyes were dark with desire. "Come back inside with me," he said, his voice low. I nodded, allowing him to lead me back through the door and into the hallway. The party continued in full swing at the other end of the corridor, but Noah turned in the opposite direction, toward his bedroom. We passed several closed doors, the sounds of the party growing fainter with each step. Noah stopped in front of his room, turning to face me with a question in his eyes. "We don't have to," he said softly. "We can go back to the party, or just talk, or—" I silenced him with a kiss, making my intentions clear. He responded immediately, pressing me against the wall beside his door, his body flush against mine. The kiss was different from our previous ones, more urgent, more demanding. His hands found their way under the hem of my shirt, warm against my skin. "Noah," I gasped as his lips moved to my neck. "Maybe we should go inside." He pulled back slightly, his eyes meeting mine. Across the hall, he whispered closer, his fingers already hooked in my belt loop, tugging me toward his door. The simple gesture was so intimate, so possessive, that it sent heat coursing through my body. I followed willingly as he opened the door and pulled me inside, closing it firmly behind us. What happened next was everything I'd imagined and nothing I could have prepared for. Noah was as passionate and attentive in private as he was charismatic in public. His hands and lips seemed to be everywhere at once, learning what made me gasp and shudder. I was less experienced but eager to discover what he liked, thrilling at every sound I drew from him. We took our time, exploring this new territory with equal parts excitement and tenderness. Afterward, lying tangled in his sheets, his head resting on my chest, I felt a contentment I'd never known before. Noah traced patterns on my skin, occasionally pressing soft kisses to whatever part of me he could reach without moving. "What are you thinking?" he asked, his voice sleepy and satisfied. I considered the question, my fingers playing with his hair. "I'm thinking that I used to believe I could understand people by observing them from a distance, that I could capture their essence without getting involved." I tilted his chin up so I could see his face. But I was wrong. Some things you can only understand by experiencing them. His smile was soft, intimate in a way that made my heart ache with happiness. "And what have you experienced?" The word came easily, naturally, as if I'd been waiting my whole life to say it. "Love." Noah's eyes widened slightly, then softened with emotion. He moved up to kiss me, gentle and reverent. "I love you too," he whispered against my lips. "I think I have since you first pointed that camera at me and saw something no one else did." We fell asleep that way, wrapped in each other's arms, the sounds of the party fading as the night deepened. In the morning, we would face the reality of winter break and temporary separation. There would be challenges ahead, the navigation of a new relationship, the balance of our individual passions with our life together, the opinions of friends and family. But in that moment, nothing else mattered but the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against mine and the knowledge that sometimes the most beautiful stories happen when you step out from behind the camera and into the frame. Total _char_count, 18,532.